Next one. So this one, most of you got wrong because most of you came back and said option E. Let's look at the next one. If the panel's recommendations are accepted, it will dash into a larger share of central funds for the least developed states. Second sentence. Reforming countries' stagnant economy requires harsh measures that would dash into job losses. My options are translate, transform, transgress, transcribe, get. The meaning is not that they recognize the farming community. The meaning that the context is giving is the policy did not help the farming community, saving them from that financial pressure, which means it did not spare them, right? It did not give them that leeway. That's the meaning. So we need to understand, no, what are all our other options. Let me have some more answers. Most of you are saying transform. Any other answers? Are you sure? So far I've only received option B. Unanimously, is everybody agreeing to B? Don't you think other options can fit get? Okay. Somebody says get, somebody says translate. Yeah, I was waiting for option A. Get into is a collocation, okay. Transgress, I mean, are you asking for the meaning or you're saying that could be it? Translate fits here. Translate, okay. So basically now I have some options, right? Some of you have said option A, some of you have said B, some of you have asked if A, some of you have said E, some of you are asking, hey, why not C as well? There's a question mark with C, transgress. So which means we need to understand the meaning of all these words, right? So let's quickly look at that. Now, most of you came back and said B. I'm going to go from the last option, okay? Get. If the panel's recommendations are accepted, it will get into a larger share of central funds for the least developed states. Okay. Reforming countries' stagnant economy requires harsh measures that would get into job losses. Okay. To get into means what? It's more like an entry, right? Isn't that the meaning? This phrasal verb, get into, gives me the meaning of what? Hey, I got into this university, right? I'm just giving you an example, which means I got admission. I got an entry. That is not the meaning both the context requires. So get is obviously out of the question. Out. Next, I know you guys are keeping in mind the collocation into. There are lots of collocations, right? But the objective is for us to identify the right one. Let's look at transcribe. Nobody said transcribe. Why? Because transcribe is again a completely different meaning, right? We don't need that meaning at all. I'm sure most of you are familiar with transcription as a job, right? Where you're listening to something that is already recorded. It can be some written work or somebody spoke something, right? And you're listening to it and then you're writing it down. It's a job, transcription, right? That's not the meaning that we need. So transcribe is out. Again, we have to choose between A, B, C. Transgress. I don't think anybody said transgress, because transgress is a completely unrelated word. Transgress means it's like you're breaking a law, right? Or a moral, like you're sinning, right? So those who transgress will be severely punished, or those who transgress amounts to sin. So that's not the answer. So we have narrowed it down to A and B. Most of you said B, some of you said A. What is the difference between translate and transform? Let's quickly pay attention to these two words which you have come back and said. Transform. To transform, the first word that comes to mind for me is change, right? To transform, modify, right? So I can say, any of you got a new haircut? I don't know, let's say for example, Neeraj, okay? Neeraj got a new haircut and the haircut has transformed him, right? He looks completely different. It has changed his personality altogether. That's one meaning, right? And transform, if you ask me, is a very positive word, right? Change to something in order to improve something, right? I would say that you either change the way you look in terms of your appearance or change the way you think, your attitude, your character. You can bring a change in your character by shifting your attitude or by changing your attitude, right? Or something can be improved, a transformation that happens. Yeah. So maybe there is a, what do I say? Some sort of a recent development in your neighborhood which has transformed the area. So if I look at transform, it is always giving me a positive meaning. It is improving something, right? I want you to keep this in mind. Translate again has different meanings, right? If I look at translate also is to change something into a new form. Lot of meanings are there. Translation, it can be like, we've heard people talk in a particular language, right? If I say something in English and a lot of you may not understand what I'm saying, one of people who are listening, your friend could translate that to you. This is what she actually meant. Translate to you in a different language, in Hindi or Tamil or whatever you're comfortable with. That is one meaning. Another translate is to what? To change something into a new form, especially turning a plan into something real, right? But the only difference between translate and transform is the outcome does not necessarily have to be positive. Are you following? Are you with me? Yeah? Let me give you an example. So, let me say, for example, how does this theory translate into something practical, into practical policy? Right? Now that I've explained to you what translate and transform is, I've given you an example also. Now you tell me, looking at both the contexts, what would be a more effective word here? Translate or transform? Think and tell me. I would ideally say, look up a lot of example sentences for transform. It would bring in the meaning of some sort of an improvement. Okay, so now that you have an idea, now tell me what is the answer. Look at the context and tell me. Rely on the context. Because if you look at the second context, it says, reforming country's stagnant economy requires harsh measures that would, option A, translate into job losses, not transform. Translate, you guys, translate. Because the second one is talking about job losses, which is negative. That's why I stressed on the positive negative aspect of these two words. Reforming country's stagnant economy requires harsh measures that would translate into job losses. As a result of that, the change would be in this way. We're not talking about a positive change, na? That's why the answer is option A. Though transform into is a collocation, it's not the right collocation here. Translate into also is a collocation, right? Look at the context that I've given you. How does this theory translate into? Translate into also is a collocation. And in the context, our answer is option A. Translate and not transform. What I would like you guys to do is, if you are so confused, take these two words, look up a lot of example sentences with these two words, understand the meaning that these sentences are bringing, then you will have an idea, right? It's always good to put it in context.